Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tactical Friday. You heard from her this past Monday, and I'm honored to have Amanda Rabideau back on the show to talk a little bit more about branding and marketing. Amanda, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
So I'm super excited about this. I know we touched on it very slightly on Monday. You have a course, you have obviously a great amount of knowledge in the marketing world. Arch Collective, as your organization, does so many amazing things for organizations, but I want to really get granular, get tactical about what your course provides, what you think people should be doing in order to really fully optimize their branding, get their messaging, which is so key, get their messaging out there, get it on in tune and on point for what they're doing. Can you give us just a couple of recommendations and how your course can benefit those things?
Sure. So first and foremost, messaging it's what people are going to repeat about your company. It's what your employees are going to say about your company. It's what you're going to pitch to your investors if you're a startup founder, or what if you're a salesperson, what you're going to tell clients. So messaging is so important. And in this course, the ability to create your messaging, it's an opportunity for those founders to get really clear on what they're going to pitch. It also is a chance for them to, be better prepared to work with any future marketers that they hire, because they can begin to speak the same language and they know, the process that the marketers have gone through. So I think there's a lot of benefits to founders taking the time to think about their message and start to craft it. And even if it's not them, making sure that they have someone on the team who can start to build out this and prioritize creating that concise and documented messaging.
And can we actually really define messaging? Are we talking about copy on social media, copy on the website, things that an executive or a founder is saying verbally on interviews like this? What really is messaging as a whole?
Yes. So it's all of those things that you just asked. But with messaging, and I'm a product marketer, that's my background, that's how I started. And so product marketers have these messaging frameworks, and ultimately it's a document that details out the exact verbiage that is used on all of those things that you mentioned. So what is the value prop? What's the elevator pitch? And it could be about a product or a company, for the record, but it's with what are the benefits? How are we going to describe them? What are the competitive differentiators? It's all of these things documented. And so that way, if someone says, let's say you're going to a trade show and you're like, oh my gosh, we haven't been to one because it's been a pandemic for the last few years. And now people are going to come up to me and be like, so what does Arch Collective do? And you've got like 10 salespeople and they've all only been around for the last 2 months. Well, this document is a good way to say, okay, this is the elevator pitch about Arch Collective. Go memorize it. These are the 3 benefits. And so, this isn't the only way to use it, but, one example of how you can take this messaging, use it to get employees aligned on the way that they're speaking about the business. Also, we had talked a little bit on Monday about how it's a super busy marketplace, right? There's a lot of clutter out there. It's hard to break through. There's so many people putting out companies, putting content out there. Well, getting the right message and being consistent about using that same messaging is also a great way to break through the clutter, because if you keep hammering the point, like we're the fastest at this, we're, XYZ, and people keep seeing that over and over and over again, well, they're going to start to equate your business with that message. And then that's how you can help break through the clutter. So there's 1,000 things I could go through about the power of messaging. But when I'm referring to messaging, I'm talking about that documented way that you are talking about a company that will be used on digital marketing, social, and press releases, and everything beyond.
And I love that you highlighted that, because at the end of the day, like your course focuses on startup messaging, and the way I kind of conceptualize that, and I want you to confirm or correct me on this, is I see startup messaging as like that pillar piece, almost like your mission statement, your vision statement, the thing that is like that core identity and messaging. Then you can take and create the social media post, you can create the blog post, you can create the interviews off of. You take that as like, hey, this is what everybody's going to preach about the organization as a whole.
100%, exactly. And I love how you tied in the content piece of it, Because let's say, you've got your 3 benefits that your product or company, what have you, offers. Well, why not then have your content do like 3 blogs, one on each of those benefits, and you can kind of like use it as a way to start framing how you're getting the word out about your company, or creating 3 videos, or, doing 3 TikToks on it, whatever the case may be. So it gives, and this is why I call it the framework, where it gives that framework for how are we going to be talking about the company.
And what that leads to, and I love this so much because I kind of use podcasting in a similar way, where it's a pillar piece of content, but off of the pillar piece of content, like your branding and your messaging, you can then have the confidence to move forward with all the other aspects, right? It's a piece where you don't have to feel afraid anymore. And I know your course helps create that. Can you talk a little bit about how you can get over that fear of writing by getting this initial clarity?
Yes. And so one, which is, the course is really a process. So if you're a little afraid of writing, or you're like, oh, I'm not a good writer. Well, there is an art and a science to this, but it is a process. So we're going to take you through and step by step. And what you'll find, and I'll use the analogy of baking, where it's like, if you have 10 days of things, or 10 pieces of, or 10 ingredients, I should say, well, then at the end of it, you may not have like a perfect cake, but you're going to have a decent cake, right? And you might need to modify it a little bit and say, okay, with this recipe, I didn't need that much flour. I needed more sugar or less salt, or whatever the case may be. So, when you're writing, it's like, we're going to help take you through that process and get you to a place that you will, then be able to have messaging relatively easily. And kind of the second half of that, or the second piece, is this fear of perfection. And I'll go back to the cake analogy. So you made the cake and it wasn't perfect. Well, what did you learn from it, right? You modify that way. Well, with messaging, you can put it out on your website. You can put it in social media. And there are ways that you can interpret the results, or look at the results to say, okay, wow, like, I think I used the example before of, if you have a subject line that used certain words and you tried another subject line for the same email with slightly different verbiage, which one did people open more? And it's like, if you see a big difference, you may say, okay, wow, this is really resonating with the right audience. Or you may say, oh, interesting, like the people that are not really my ideal client really like this headline. So like, that's probably not what I should be using, because I don't want to attract the right people. So going into this with the mentality of, today's a great day to get it wrong. Today's a great day to make a mistake. This doesn't need to be perfect, is also really good, because messaging isn't static. You can always modify it or adjust it based on what's resonating more with your audience.
And you've brought up cake like 6 times now, and you're about to head to pick up the birthday cake, the kids' birthdays today.
I know, cake is on the mind.
Cake is on the mind, and we all want a piece of it. And I think it's such a great analogy attached to marketing. I mean, that's the way to do it, right? You start adding the ingredients that are appropriate. And as you step into the forefront, your ideal clients, almost like a magnet, right? They're like magnetized to you. You start drawing these people to you because you're putting the right ingredients out there. You're speaking,
Yep.
you hear it all the time, but you're speaking to that specific individual. And that's what a lot of branding and messaging comes down to. I'm assuming that's what your course is built around. What is the course? Who's it directed toward? I know you talk about startups a lot, but who else could be interested in this course to really get the clarity on there?
Yep. So, like my business, it's focused on founders and startups and helping businesses grow. But, even within those startups, there may be, a lot of times there's not a marketing team. There might be like one marketing hire. And so that marketing hire may not have any experience in messaging or that aspect, because there's multiple types of marketers. So,
and they're probably doing the email list, they're doing all the other stuff, the social media management, they're the marketer, quote unquote, but they're also operations and sales. And that's a startup for you, right?
So it's like, okay. And they may say, wow, I need a little help because I don't know how to do this. Great for them. I mean, anyone who's launching a new product too, right? Where it's like, wow, and I've never launched a glass before. How do I talk about it? Well, this course can help you figure out, how do I tell the story around this new product I'm launching? I would even argue, if you're a small, medium-sized business and you're like, hey, I haven't had the luxury of having these, taking the time to think through my messaging, but now I'm I want to compete on a bigger scale. The marketplace has opened up, especially with e-commerce and the pandemic and all of these different things. How do I start to have a more prominent voice in the global economy? Well, get your messaging right. And this would be great for them too. So lots of different people could benefit from it.
I love it. And it's definitely a needed resource, especially today where we do have more of those saturated platforms where that messaging can be so vital to gaining traction or any traction at all, where you have to have that clarity. What's the best way for them to find this course? Remind the audience how to reach out to you, how to connect with you. Where's the best place to find all this amazing content?
Yes, well, my website, arch-collective.com, under services, there is a page all about the course, and you can get more information there, as well as go ahead and sign up for the course. And depending on who you are and what your budget is, there's probably an option, because there's an option where you can just get the self-serve content. There's one where you can attend office hours with myself and other people who are building their message, so you can benefit from learning from other people in the same situation. And then there's an option where you get one-on-one consulting from me throughout the process too. So lots of different options. And one thing that I think is important to mention here too is that, like, messaging doesn't get a lot of airtime when it comes to marketing. And it's I always joke, like, oh, it's the arts and crafts department, marketing, and people think about like the visual brand and like what colors and logos and pictures. And it's like, yeah, the picture does tell a lot. But maybe going back to like my child and reading children's books, but like with the picture, the story is the really powerful part, the words that are used. And so I don't think a lot of people pay credence to the importance of those words on the page, the words that are used. But that is super, super powerful. So getting it right can make a massive difference to your business.
I'm going to double down on that one because I've even noticed on LinkedIn, and that's my main platform. I'm going to go into the social media side of things. My main
Yeah.
platform in marketing is LinkedIn. And as I've gotten more long form content, less video, less graphics, digital media graphics, but got more long form, the blogs, the articles, the hey, here's the story, the case study type formats, LinkedIn starts catching that and it starts going. And the reason that catches the algorithm is that that's what people are reading about. They want to read these. They're staying on your posts. They're staying engaged in your content. But if you don't have the written word and that messaging figured out, they're just going to scroll and like, oh, there's another nonsensical thing that people aren't right. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of how I look at it is when I see bad messaging, I'm not even thinking, oh, that's bad messaging. I'm thinking, oh, I'm not interested. And then
Well, that's exactly right. Like that is no, it could be that you're not the target and therefore it's good messaging, because they're like, okay, I'm not looking for, pink nail polish that's, for 5-year-olds, right?
I
You're
love
not
pink
the
nail
audience.
polish. Hang on.
Hey, maybe you do. Piggy Paint makes this pink nail polish that's non-toxic. I guess that's my plug for them. But at any rate, but like when you're scrolling, well, like TikTok or Instagram Reels or what have you, it's what's on the cover of that video or what's the words. Because yes, someone's dancing or pointing or doing whatever, but that's just keeping your attention to read the content. So it's like the amount of time going into like, how are you going to dance, on the screen is important, but it's like, what are you saying that's so important that you can continue to keep their attention and they can read and they can find value in it.
I love it. Amanda, you're hitting the nail on the head. And this is something that's so important to so many business owners and startups. And one last time, social media, email, contact information. What's the best way for them to reach out, find you, and find more of your content?
Well, a couple places. So one on LinkedIn is a great way. I publish blogs and, you can read all sorts of content. You can find it on my website too. On on Instagram, if you do want to see some kitchen dancing or some other dancing or moves to TikTok, is my way of helping educate about messaging and other startup marketing tactics. You can find me personally at ProManda or at Arch Collective Marketing on Instagram.
You're amazing. I definitely encourage everybody, reach out, check her out, find out how to kitchen dance with the best of them, and overall
Now I'm
find.
going to do a video on kitchen dancing. I don't actually know if there's even one
I
up
think you're
there.
gonna have to, and it can be, the kiddos, get them involved, maybe some
Maybe
oh,
some cake as well.
some cake, but also what was that movie? Tom Cruise, he slides in.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, risky business.
Risky Business, a Risky
A
Business movie
classic.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, you can just roll right into it. So I'm looking forward to that IG post and maybe a TikTok or two. But um,
Yes. Awesome.
overall, Amanda, you're amazing. I appreciate your time, your insights, your wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks again, Zach. I appreciate it.